Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already. Shit. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and drop a like on this video. With that out of the way, today this is not a post-game recap, obviously, because I'm probably going to be posting it a little bit earlier before, usually the 1 a.m. post-game recap because I watch very late games. Today I want to talk about the play-in tournament, and the reason I'm doing this video is I was like on the cusp of making this a main channel video, but I was like, I don't think people care about it to the extent that I'd want them to for a main channel video. And that's kind of my thoughts with these non-post-game recaps or non-hot takes videos is I kind of have thoughts for something that I think is worthy of content but not worthy of main channel content. Like, for example, I have the harsh truth about Lauri Markkanen video, which actually did shockingly well. I didn't think anyone would give a shit about that. Like, what does the Harden injury mean for the Nets? What's the other one? Can anyone stop the Brooklyn Nets? What does LeBron's injury mean for the Nets? The Skip Bayless, there are no lucky shots thing. Like, just in general, if I have an idea, the Vucevic trade could end up being a mistake. If I have an idea, but I don't think it's main channel worthy, I'll probably slap it here when it comes to mind. And today is one of those days because I want to talk about the play-in tournament because I had an interesting conversation with the man, the myth, the legend, Rudy St. Clair. We talked very, very briefly about the play-in tournament and the Memphis Grizzlies, and I think I just mentioned really in passing the Grizzlies play-in tournament. They might play the Warriors, something like that. And then he was just like, okay, so the Grizzlies won't make the playoffs. He wasn't like all mad about it, but he kind of said it in passing. And then we talked about some fucking cryptocurrency because that's the type of guy Rudy is. And so I wanted to talk about this because I also saw a lot of discourse on Twitter about the fact that the NBA is solidifying the play-in tournament as like, yeah, we're going to make this a thing from now on because that happened. It's seeming like the play-in tournament is here to stay. This was the first year where it wasn't just dropped on us suddenly because it did happen for the bubble, but nobody expected the circumstances around the bubble were already so weird that nobody really talked about the play-in tournament because like it was already fucking weird. I don't know. I'm just watching basketball. I'm glad it's back. I'm not going to question anything. Now basketball has been back for a year. We knew the play-in tournament was happening coming into this year, and now it's interesting. So, for example, the 7-seeded Portland Trail Blazers have a 4-game lead on the Golden State Warriors. Is it necessarily fair to them that the Warriors have a chance at taking their spot? In the Eastern Conference, if we go over there, the 7-seeded Miami Heat have a 4-game lead on the 10th-seeded Washington Wizards. Is it fair to the Heat that they could potentially, I think the Heat would win that series, but is it fair to the Heat that they could potentially lose that play-in tournament and then the spot that they earned before that is taken away from them? And here's another problem that exists with when you do play-in stuff or like just different rule changes. That's not play-in stuff. When you do a rule change, my family might be loud in the background. I apologize for that. When you do a rule change that can recontextualize shit throughout history, like not most like 1-8 matchups or 2-7 matchups don't end up actually mattering, but it does happen from time to time where it matters. And when that does happen, it can be important for history, for the playoffs that year. Like, for example, I think back in 1999, the Knicks went to the finals as the 8th seed. So while it's not always an important thing, it's not like we're messing with the top of the top teams, generally speaking, it can matter if you're just recontextualizing like that. Like, what if the Knicks had a bad 2-3 games in a play-in tournament for the 8th seed, and then suddenly 1999 looks completely fucking different? That's something that's very well possible if that were to have been the case. And that's like, I've heard people suggest like we should give the MVP a definition that basically just means best player in the league, or like record doesn't matter because I don't think it's fair that the MVP works that way, or we should change the precedent. But it's like, okay, then that calls into question what is it, 70 fucking MVPs that there's been throughout history. That's the problem. I don't think I don't think there's too many people worried about a 1999 situation being recontextualized. I don't think other than Knicks fans, nobody really thinks about the 99 Knicks. But I do think that's a concern from a historical context. A first round matchup when it's the 1-8 can change things. Like another example, a more recent one, 2015, was it 2017? The Bulls, if Rondo did not get hurt, we're probably gonna beat the 2017 Isaiah Thomas peak 30-point per game season Celtics in the first round. Like, it was very much looking that way. The Bulls won the first 2 games on the Celtics home court with Rondo playing unfucking believable, and then he got injured and the Celtics won the next 4 games. Like, winning the first 2 games on the opposition's court is like a very good sign that you're going to win the series, and then the injury happens, and then it doesn't end up happening. But let's say the Bulls would have won that first round matchup, and then that would just bring the Celtics off of the table, who were like a 60-win team. But what if the Bulls lost in a play-in tournament, and whoever the fuck was the 10th seed ended up getting that matchup, and the Celtics win in 4 games? Either way here, the Celtics win the first round, but you know what I'm saying. I don't think it's a huge issue, but really what matters most of all is what's fair to these teams, because I don't think it's fair to the Memphis Grizzlies that they can get fucked out of finally making the playoffs with Ja Morant after barely missing it last year because of the play-in tournament. I don't think that's really fair to them, especially the fact that the Grizzlies are in this 8th seed spot, despite the fact they haven't had Jaren Jackson all year. And as much as I have been critical of Ja Morant, or just think overall he's a little overhyped, the fact that he is the leader, like, I don't think he's always the best player, but generally is, but then he's also just the leader and the guy who is the biggest, most important player to the team, and they're the 8th seed right now in the Western Conference. That's very impressive, and that could be taken away because this tournament shit exists that really, unless you're a fan of these lower seeded teams, no one really cares. But to a Memphis Grizzlies fan, they're going to care about that. To a Portland Trailblazers fan, they're going to care about that. Although the Portland Trailblazers have their own issues, which I may or may not make a video about on the main channel. But I just feel the fairness of it isn't there. And like, you might make the argument, okay, well, this is just another challenge. If you really deserve that place, then win the series. I understand that point of view. But, like, I feel like you're just adding an extra hurdle to teams that, especially when they're lower in the playoffs, have been jumping over hurdles for the entire season. So it's almost like an exhaustive fuck you that I jumped 15 hurdles and now you're like, what's 16? You know what I mean? If I was a 8th-seeded team and my team got dicked out of the playoffs because of it, it would frustrate me. And another thing, if I was a fan of one of these lower-seeded teams, I understand if you're like the Warriors, because the Warriors have just been good other than last year, very, very good, so you kind of just want to be good. But, like, even if I'm, like, for the Bulls are basically out of the play-in tournament. The Wizards have a 3-game lead. The Wizards have to drastically fail, and the Bulls, without Zach LaVine for a couple of games, have to drastically move up. So it's not going to happen. But I said before to my dad when we were talking about the Bulls, like, if the Bulls made the playoffs through the play-in tournament, it would be like 30 wins, like a 30-42 record, and that got you the play-in, I'd be like, bro, this fucking sucks. This is I don't give a fuck that I made the playoffs. Like, not I made the playoffs, the team made the playoffs. Like, this was not earned. Even if you make the argument, well, they won the play-in tournament, so that made it earned. Like, is it really though? Like, you took the best out of a 3-game sample size after sucking all year, but just barely sucking not enough to not be out of the top 10 teams in the conference. Like, I feel like it's a low bar of accomplishment to get to the 8 seed, so are we going to reward a team for getting to the 9 and 10 seed? Like, congratulations for being the best of the worst. It wouldn't feel like an accomplishment there So it's not even really fulfilling, at least from my perspective. It would not be fulfilling for the teams that do come from the 9-10 seed and make it up into the 7-8. And I don't think it'd be fair to the teams that are in the 7-8. So I really don't like the play-in tournament idea. I understand the appeal, especially because, as the season winds down, there's not much appeal for the regular season. This is something I struggle with every year making content about the NBA, because there's times last like usually 30 games. Now it's more like 20 just because there's 10 less games this season. But usually the last chunk of the season is really a struggle content wise. And that's for the NBA as well. The viewership is gradually going down because we know what these teams are. So there's not really any reason to watch the games other than just the pure basketball in front of your eyes, which is a good attractor, but you need narratives, you need interesting things, like things to look out for. Like, I know what the Boston Celtics are now. I don't need to watch the Celtics anymore, although I'm very glad I watched that Celtics Spurs game yesterday, or at least the fourth in OT. It is, I understand that they're trying to, like, bring up interest to close the regular season, and it might actually achieve that, and sure, that could be good for the NBA. But just purely from a fairness standpoint, as well as like a feeling of accomplishment for the lower seeded teams, I don't really feel what this accomplishes outside of just generating interest. I understand why the league is doing it, because generating interest is important, but I don't really like it. I guess that's my point of view on all of this. This was very much a ramble. This went in directions I didn't think I was going to, but fuck it. I thought it was an interesting conversation. Maybe you disagree. I don't know. By the way, not post game recap, deep dive. New one coming out tomorrow. And this is the first time I've been excited about a video in 2 months, because I've been going through a creative withdrawal to where I just absolutely have no desire to do anything. Like, me posting for the past month, 2 months has really just been me trying to maintain what I have. And you can kind of tell, at least to me, I can. I'm hoping that this deep dive can kind of rejuvenate me, because it's about Skip Bayless and how he made a career out of being a hater. It's a very interesting conversation to me, and I think the video is very, very good. So tune in for that when it comes out. It'll be much appreciated. Anyways, that is it. Goodbye.